Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Ad America TV. Hi, I'm Maya Trainer. I'm one of the guides here at Ad America, and we welcome our audience joining us online. We truly hope that you are doing well and stay safe amidst this outbreak. Well, anyway, for those of you who are first timers here, hi, welcome to Ad America TV for the first time. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young generations of Indonesia to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a solely digital platform so you can enjoy our program from the comfort of your own home and help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment box below, and our panelists will answer them later in the seminar. And for our friends here who are joining us for Zoom, there are a couple of features that you can use to actively participate in the seminar. You can use the raise hand section to ask your questions with your video on, or you can also use the chat box section whenever you wanted to say hi to the other participant and also the panelist as well. But please keep in mind to use these features wisely, all right? Cool. Now today we will be having a session titled U.LabX 2021. A friendly reminder for all of you as continuation of our 10th anniversary celebration and celebrating diversity in Indonesia and also in the United States, we are having a very special activity with a giveaway this month. In this giveaway, we are giving out an iPad Pro. How exciting! So make sure to stay tuned till the end of this event where I'll be sharing with you guys on how to participate. In the meantime, I'm gonna break the ice a little bit with our social media quiz. So, our question of the day is, who is the originator of Theory U? Is it A, Robert Keegan, B, Joseph Jaworski, C, Betty Sue Flowers, or D, Otto Scharmer? I will repeat the question one more time. Listen carefully, all right? Who is the originator of Theory U? Is it A, Robert Keegan, B, Joseph Jaworski, C, Betty Sue Flowers, or D, Otto Scharmer? You can participate this quiz through our social media comment section and stay tuned till the end of this event to find out if you got the answers right. And now, without further ado, please welcome our facilitator for today, Ibu Shobila Walata, Senior Facilitator and Director of the Learning Program at United in Diversity.
All right, thank you so much. And welcome everyone once again to our third meeting of the U.LabX session. Let me just share my screen real quick. There, can everyone see my screen okay? Yes?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Once again, welcome. This is the third meeting of our 6-week program called U.LabX. U.Lab itself is a system leadership originated as a massive open online course that you can find on EDX. And it's been adapted by United University, where I work with my co-facilitator, Pramita or Mita. And for the past 5 years, we have been delivering it collaboratively with the U.S. Embassy, Jakarta, Waisili at America and American Spaces, and U.S. embassies from around Southeast Asia. So welcome to all of you from Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and beyond. For today, as always, to serve a learning, it always takes a village, right? And today's village consists of, aside from all the technical hosts from Ad America team, thank you. We also have, if you're in Zoom today, you will see, for the small group meetings, you might see Igor, Lin, Mega, Inasha, Harold, Robi, Faisal, Mesha, Jara, and Fajar. Facilitating the small group. Akias is currently handling Zoom participant management. Raisha, Shinta, and Pat Scott are all monitoring your questions and your comments and your feedback on social media. And also bringing in your voice into the conversation space are Ngaba and Maral. So all of us over the few weeks that we're together will be helping you navigate this space and getting the most out of your learning. I think, there we go. As I mentioned, ULab actually originated as a massive open online course that is open to anyone in the world. So there's a global conversation happening around the world and year round, not only during the time of ULab. So if you are on social media and you want to maybe share some of your experiences about ULab or the transformation journey or any insights or stories that you want to share with us, you can tag us. You can see here, this is the social media handle of Waisili and At America and UAE Indonesia. These are the hashtags you might want to look up if you want to see what else is going on in the world or want to connect or plug in your own stories to the global storytelling. And the mother load of Theory U related resources are at this website right here, www.presensing.org. And there are many more offerings if you want to dive deeper into Theory U or have the more extended version of ULab program, or find just practitioners and activists alike who are currently working on transformative systemic change. You can find them there. So with that, my mouse likes to double click. I'm so sorry. There we go. For today's conversation, we will also be engaging you through something called the Mentimeter. Not yet, not right now, but if you want to preload your browser, you can do it now. So if you go to www.menti.com, it'll ask for a code, and the code that you want to put in is the one on the screen, 67487820. And in a few slides from now, we will be asking you to share in your answers to some questions. So we'll always show this when it comes time again, but just as a pre-warning. Okay, so last week we introduced the concept of mindfulness as a core practice for any leader dealing with complex, uncertain, volatile situation as we are all facing right now. So we to reinforce that this is about discipline, right? We call it the three P's: practice, practice, and practice. So we want to also open today's session with a moment of mindfulness. If this is your first time doing mindfulness, the key to doing it is to just let go of any obtrusive thoughts. If you find yourself wandering, just let go of whatever it is you're thinking, and then bring your attention back in the moment without judgment. Okay, I will guide you through a very very short meditation session. And if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure you're seated comfortably with your feet flat on the ground. If you're seated on the floor, just sit with your legs open, crossed and open, and just feel where you are seated and connected to the earth. Okay, your spine is straight, and you can imagine as though there's a string that ties you and hangs you from the top of your head, so that your spine hangs, your shoulder hangs loose, and your spine sits straight. And just relax. Okay, if you feel more comfortable doing it with your eyes closed, you may choose to do so. But if you want to keep them open, just maintain a soft gaze, not fixed on anything. Just the eyes as an open boundary between you and the world. Okay. You can rest your hands wherever you feel comfortable on your lap somewhere. Can be facing up, can be facing down. And I would like to invite us to bring our attention into the now, the very present moment. And one of the best ways of grounding ourselves in the present moment is to feel our own breath, to feel our own breathing. So let's just take a breath. Inhale and exhale. Our body has a natural rhythm to it. So let's just let our breathing happen naturally. Breathing in and breathing out. Bring attention to this present moment. Notice how your body feels. What are the sensations you are feeling with every breath that you take in and every breath that you exhale? Notice the rising and falling of your shoulder. Noticing your chest cavity expanding and collapsing with every breath. Your mind might want to take you somewhere else. Maybe your mind wants to remind you of overdue tasks or things you want to do after this. If you notice your mind wandering, just let go. Let go of the storyline and bring your attention back to the now, back to the breath. Let's just stay with the breath for a couple more minutes. If you happen to be in a place with a lot of noises on the outside, don't be bothered. It's just the sound of life happening around you. Just notice it and let go. And bring your attention back to the now. Feel your feet that are firmly planted on the ground. Our connection to the planet Earth. Feel our connection with each other who are present in this space virtually across time and space, connected towards the common intention of bringing in a better world and better selves. And let's feel our connection from the top of our head to the open sky, to the open universe, the open possibilities of tomorrow, of the future that are yet to happen, but can be shaped by our choices today. So, with that, let's affirm to ourselves our intentions for today's learnings. Just repeat it in your heart. If you're religious, you might want to offer it as a prayer. And when you are ready, bring your attention back to the present moment, to the space that we shared together with each other, and take a deep breath and exhale and open your eyes when you are ready. Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back. Um, I hope that gives us some space and some time to really recenter ourselves around our intention for the next 2 hours that we're going to spend together. I personally find that this act of recentering allows me to experience things more fully. It helps me to be more attentive to whatever is happening around me, and therefore allows me to make better choices, and in responding to what is emerging. So, as before mentioned, please maintain this practice. This is definitely a core discipline in the awareness-based systems change that we try to share with you through ULab. um, do it in the morning when you wake up, do it before you go to sleep, or even do it in your seat as you enter into meetings. Just bring your attention back to the breath and the present moment, learning to let go of stresses or thoughts or intrusive fears and worries, and just bring it back to the now. So yes, I invite you to continue that practice on your own. So just to catch us up to speed, I think I need to. Are you still seeing my screen, by the way?
No,
No.
I just hijacked it.
Okay.
You can put it back. Yes.
All right. So let's do a quick recap of the last two meetings, because this is our third, right? So ULab, in theory, what we're seeing is that a lot of us collectively, as a society right now, we are facing what we call the three divides, like a massive gap, massive disconnect. The first one is ecological, a disconnect between ourselves and nature. You see this in whatever it is that we're experiencing relating to the climate crisis. The 1.7 refers to the number of planets that is needed to sustain our way of life at the moment, which is absolutely not sustainable. And then the second divide that we're seeing at a collective societal level is the social divide. It's the gap, the disconnect between us and others. The number 8 refers to the number of people, top 8 people who owns the most wealth in the world. They own the same amount of capital, the same amount of wealth as the bottom half, 3.5 billion people in the world. Um, it's just an artifact of the way we build our economy, of the way we create our society. And it just shows that we still have a lot of failings when it comes to really lifting everyone together as we march towards development and progress. And the last one is the spiritual divide on the right side. Is this is the gap between us and ourselves, us and our highest future potential. In some ways, we are not living to the best version that we could be. We let ourselves often even be trapped by patterns that make us not the best versions of ourselves. So we can't see who we are or who we could be. And that number 40 is the number of seconds. Every 40 seconds, somebody in the world takes their own life. And so on a global level, this is a pandemic, right? A pandemic of suicide, where every year 800,000 deaths occur that are self-inflicted. The inability to really see who we could be tomorrow that's better than who we are today. So I guess it's fair to say on a collective level, we are creating results that nobody wants, because nobody really wakes up and say, I want to make other people's lives more miserable, right? I think we at deep down, uh, all of us are simply trying to live our lives, and we want to leave the world in a better state than what we're living in right now. However, there's a gap between what we want and what we do. And so Theory U invites us to re-examine what are these patterns. If we say those three divides are kind of the tip of the iceberg, you only see what's visible, but there's actually a large part of the problem or the challenge is happening beneath the surface, and it's very difficult to notice unless you're really paying attention. And the first thing that we need to do is to stop downloading past patterns. Um, We need to stop reenacting habitual ways of responding to things because that's usually part of the problem, right? Um, the past has gotten us so far, but it also got us to the mess that we're in right now. And oftentimes, it's exactly what got us to the problem that we're facing right now. So it's not useful to keep doing the same thing. So, the invitation of Theory U, this is a very large scale macro perspective, is to start observing. Observe, observe, observe. What is going on? Look with fresh eyes. Listen to others. Understand the system. Understand what's going on, not only at the surface level, but at the more fundamental root cause. And what we find often is the invitation to change who we are first before we want to see changes on the outside. And that's what takes us to the second step, the bottom of the U, is the invitation to then retreat and reflect and reconsider who we are, who we are as a person, who we are as organizations, who we are as society. What do we want? What do we want to be? And this inner knowing is there. Deep down, we all have that capacity to understand who we really are. But it doesn't stop there. The invitation is also to act in an instant and prototype this new ways of being so that we can iterate it and evolve it along with others in the system. So, how do we do that? Well, that's what the ULab journey hopes to take you along. This is the first step is to investigate with different ways of listening. Uh, Most of us are more used to, I would say, perhaps the top two levels, right? We know how to listen to what we want to hear. We've all heard this, right? We only hear what we want to hear, so we filter things out that we disagree with. And so that's downloading. And we also, a lot of us know really well how to listen to differences, only noticing the facts that some other people or the world out there is different from the way we think. Um, but the invitation for transformative experiences is to listen at deeper level. We call this a deep listening. The first one is level 3. It's empathic. So you only listen, not only you listen with your mind, but also with your heart wide open. You employ not only curiosity but compassion, willing to see things from the perspective of others, seeing through others' eyes, and also having the courage to change, to let go, to the open will to allow whatever wants to emerge comes and not forcing our way or the way we see things, right? And so that's what we call generative listening. Um, we left last week with an invitation for you to practice a tool called Case Clinic. This is a small group peer coaching utilizing Theory U so that in about 60 to 75 minutes, you can experience the entirety of the U process using deep listening methods and accessing the wisdom of yourself and your peer. If you didn't have a chance to do it yet, it's okay. There's still time, and the invitation is always open. We always say the time for transformation starts from now, not from yesterday, not from tomorrow, but it starts wherever you are. Don't worry about falling off the wagon. Just get back on it and start again. So you can find the materials either from Waisili's Facebook channel or also from the YouTube and Facebook of Ad America and catch up with the materials. So with that, I want to hand it over to Mita to guide us through the check-in process.
Alrighty, thank you, Shobi. So, a power whoosh to Shobi. One, two, three, whoosh. Oh, probably that's going to be new for some of you as well. So we usually share the power whoosh if anyone just shared with us a very positive energy, and we give back that energy with the power whoosh. So starting along, we want to invite you to reflect back on our learning from last week. We want to invite you to a check-in process. For those of you who are in Zoom, we will invite you to a breakout room where you will discuss these two questions, these two reflective questions. First is to reflect back from your listening levels during this past week, since we last met. Did you realize in which level of listening you are operating from? And were there moments where you noticed your listening level shifted from one to another? This doesn't mean it has to evolve to a higher level. Say if you realize that, oh, okay, I believe that I think I'm from listening to level one. I think I'm now listening from from level two. I think I moved to level one. That's also fine. Every shift is still a learning point of view as well. So the process is what matters, right? Of you realizing which levels you're operating from and what shifts happened, and also what are the moments that made that shift happen. That's the first reflective question that we're inviting you in. And the second is, if you're doing the case clinic, if you've done the case clinic last week, what are the moments that struck you the most? So please share with us these two reflections. For those of you joining through streaming, you can share your reflections in the comment page, whether you're in Facebook or in YouTube. You can also share it through Mentimeter using that link on top of the right corner, menti.com 67487820. And I think if Akyas is ready for our participants in Zoom, you can join the conversation in the breakout rooms where you will be accompanied as well by our co-facilitators in every room. I'll just copy the conversation and the questions to the chat as well, so you don't miss it out. So you can check this. Okay, so I think you guys are already invited to go to the breakout rooms by Akyas and enjoy the conversation happening for the Zoom participants. It will be very interesting. But while we wait for you, for the Zoom participants to have their conversations in the Zoom breakout rooms, we would like to invite our participants joining through the streaming platforms to share their reflections with us through the comment page or through Mentimeter. Our team are also compiling your questions. I'll put this up again just in case. So, yes,
The Menti code is 67487820.
think, yes, while we wait for some of your questions, I think we already have some people jotting in through Mentimeter. Nice. Wow, you guys are fast. So I will share the Mentimeter screen for a while. Later on, I will hand again to Naba and Maral to recap some of the interesting reflections from our participants. So, from Mentimeter, um, okay. Oh, interesting reflections. So some feel that their experiences vary from level one to four, but I think it's most dependent on the value that I gave to every situation. Every level, I believe, is useful in its own right. It's true. So we do invite you through the you process journey here to realize where your level of listening is operating from, and to create profound changes, we do invite you to access that level four. But as you said, some situations might need you to operate from level one first, and then you can move along to the other levels according to the situation. So very good reflections. Thank you very much. And also want to highlight this. Okay. Oh, so this is one interesting reflection as well. I believe that normally my listening level is two from the outside, but to be honest, I haven't noticed my listening shifted before. Maybe because when I was young, I was in level one, but as I grew up, I'm more than maybe in level two. So, yes, I think this invitation is also maybe new to all of you because to some of you, because we rarely has have the opportunity to truly understand and realize as well in which level of listening I'm operating from. I've read also a reflection from the check-in points. Some of you also shared that you've never realized in which level of listening you're operating from, and sometimes you want to inflict to other, you want others to understand you, but then you didn't realize that I myself haven't operated from the more generative level of listening. So I myself haven't opened myself to understand other people's, but I want to be understood by others. So I think it's a good reflection point for you to understand yourself better, so so other people can understand you better as well. So thank you very much for the very profound reflections. I want to hand this over to Maral and Ngaba. Do we have any interesting reflections from our participants in the streaming platforms?
Hi. Yes, Mita, we have several actually. So there's this one that shares from YouTube. It's from Amna Nias, and I believe it's a she. She said, "I have noticed that my listening level changed from normal to intermediate the moment in which I've realized it is the online class." Oh, that's actually meant in the online class lecture. And then another person shared about, "I'm stuck in listening some difficult words which I've never listened before." So okay, quite interesting. And
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, I think sometimes I think encountering different terms might be one of the fastest way of knocking you back to level two listening, right? Because then you get fixated on what does this word mean. So but it's good that you're noticing it now, right? So I always say that the first step in creating change is noticing first. So now that you know you're stuck in certain levels, then you can start paying attention to what's needed to create a shift. Whether it's you telling yourself to let go, or to employ your curiosity and ask questions, or to remind yourself, hey, let's put on some empathy here and see what's going on beyond what the words mean. So
yeah, I think it's actually Shobi, actually Amna added her answer and saying that normal means beginner level. So I think what happened was through by participating in this program, now she knows that her level of listening it's considered at the beginning. So that's already a very good improvement, right? To know so we can improve. Maybe Ngaba would also like to read. We have one on YouTube from Kine Noita Irwantoro.
Yeah, I think there is another one. I don't think there is oh yeah, I think it's a
Right?
she, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's a she. Sorry if it's not. Uh, the questions or the reflection is, I realized that when I'm feeling negative emotions, my listening level can drop and stay at level 1. However, when I have more emotional space, my listening can be at level 3. I can totally relate to this question. So, Basobi, if you want to give some insight to this concern, I would be very thankful.
yes, absolutely. And that's exactly why, Ngaba, we always, at the end of the day, creating change on the outside is really first about working with yourself, right? It's about managing your own emotional space. It's about managing how much bandwidth you bring into any situation. It's very true that your listening capacity often drops, becomes very little when you're dealing with a lot of stress. I call it when you're feeling like you're operating from scarcity, when you feel like you don't have enough. I don't have enough for myself. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough bandwidth. What do you want from me? Right? And then suddenly your level of listening goes back to like, I just want to debate. I don't want to hear what I don't want to hear. So absolutely, it's all about managing your own emotional space first.
Thank you. I think we have another one.
Right.
Do you want to read it out, Mara?
Sure. So this is from Facebook. I hope I'm spelling her name correctly. Ich bin Frau, and she said, "Every time I listen to someone, sometimes I put myself into his or her situations, which it's a very important skill, I think. So that's from her.
Yes, thank you. Meet anything else from Menti? Maybe do we have more submissions that we might want to
Yeah.
highlight? Thank you so much, Maral and Ngaba, for bringing in our friends' voices from social media and on the streaming platforms. Power whoosh, one, two, three, whoosh.
So wait, I haven't shared my screen yet.
No, not yet.
All right. So yes, a lot of people who added in through Mentimeter shared very interesting point of views, such as I think these two resonate the same. So it depends on the situation and the people that they are interacting with, for in them realizing in which levels of listening that they are operating from. I think it's similar to what Laba shared before, right? I mean, it's also, I think
Yeah,
it's more dependent on how yourself and then how you perceive the situation with those people that you're interacting with.
yeah. I mean, I think the comment above that is somebody who participated in a case clinic.
Wait, let me
From the
share.
case clinic, I can become a person who is more caring and more responsive.
Oh, wait.
On the left hand side, there we go. Oh, you just passed it.
Oh, oh, oh.
There we go.
There we
My
go.
hearing shifted. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, when my nephew tried to call me to play with him, the level when the topics raised are very serious and private. Oh. And through the case clinic, I can become a person who is more caring and more responsive and sensitive to what is around me. Hey, thank you for doing the case clinic. I think it's one of the most profound tools to learn and to practice in this U journey. I think usually in the main in the global U.Lab course, they will emphasize and invite you to always do the case clinic process along the way. Um, so because this is one of the most important process where it invites you to move from operating as usual, where you listen to somebody's story and you immediately respond to them, and now you're being invited to reflect back and mirror that situation from your point of view first before you respond to them. So it gives you a more mindful and caring approach of really empathizing and understanding that situation from the person's point of view. So thank you for trying that out.
All right. I think before we call our friends back in the
Mm,
room, I just want to. I notice a general pattern of people noticing that your level of listening varies throughout the day and depends on who you're dealing with or who you're listening to. Absolutely. And that's the whole point, right? The first thing is noticing. Now that you know that there are different levels and you know that what triggers you to listen at certain deeper or more less deep levels, then you can work with that. Uh, the invitation is to employ curiosity towards your own patterns of behavior, right? What makes me triggered? What am I? What are my soft spots? You know, in what situations is it easier to listen deeply, or when is it not? And then when once you start noticing these patterns, you can work with them. You could work on putting yourself in situations that are more conducive to deep listening, or you can decide to make space when you're in the middle of a situation where it's very difficult to make space for others. So you become more conscious of your own actions and your response to the situation. So, yes, thank you. Keep practicing.
all right, I think we can invite our participants in the breakout room back. Okay. And then we will listen from them. Um, no, this would be very interesting because you're all from across Southeast Asia connecting in one Zoom room. I think apart from what happens from the pandemic, what resulted from the pandemic, being able to connect online and interacting with different people with very different background from you is one of the most interesting come outs from this pandemic. You have more opportunities to be connected. So hey, I think everyone is already whooshed out from their breakout rooms. So welcome back. And all right. So now we want to invite you, the Zoom participants who just got back from the breakout rooms, if you have any interesting insights to share with all of us from your conversation in the breakout rooms. So if you want to share, I think we can help you unmute. But first of all, you can flag us by noticing us in the chat if you want to share with us, or you can raise your hands through the reaction button. There it is. Okay. On the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's that smiley face, the reaction button, and then there's the raise hand option if you want to share with us. Or you can flag us through the chat if you want to share. If not, I think I can ask the um, co-facilitators to nominate some interesting insights. Or maybe co-facilitators, is there anything you would like to share with us in the breakout session? And then you can nominate your participants. No, not yet. I saw some smiling faces in the Zoom screen.
Too shy.
Still shy. All right, maybe just one voice before we go through. Okay, we
Only
have
Bianca deh.
yeah. All right, Bianca, we will unmute you. There you go.
Everyone. For our group, we decided that it depends on the person that we are talking to, that we are able to listen to them on the levels of listening. It depends if you are close to them or how well you know that person, or if it's just a colleague or a person that is in a higher rank. It depends on the level of listening. But most of us, I think, that it's more of one factual to empathic levels of listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca, for sharing. Power
Our
whoosh to
whoosh.
you. One, two,
One.
three.
Whoosh. So thank you, Bianca. And that's again, I think I said it to our streaming friends. Noticing is the first step, right? And I think if you're at the point that you are noticing, what you're noticing is your habitual patterns of responding to things, right? So naturally, when you're talking to somebody you're close with, it's easier to drop into the deeper levels. If it's with colleagues, maybe you tend to focus more on the second level. Um, the invitation of theory U is after you start noticing, then you can start transforming. Then you can start consciously making different choices, especially in difficult relationships that you know. I think in a little bit here, Mita will be sharing about the iceberg. These patterns of relationships give rise to the overall behavior of the system itself. And so if you're wondering why is it so difficult to work with so and so, well, probably it's because of your pattern of relationships, right? And maybe that of relationship manifests from the way you listen or converse with them. And that's absolutely what we're going to be covering in this week's U.Lab. So thank you.
All right. I'm sorry, just one more before we move on. We have Angelina here sharing through the chat. So she's joined a group called Girls Out Loud, ooh, where they have a weekly meeting to talk about gender equality. Oh, very good. And they have moments that they are agree of disagreement about some topics like abortion, but from the levels of listening, you realize in which levels that you're operating from, where you're the kind of person that is open-minded and always trying to come up with a new idea. So, yes, thank you very much. So I think it's very interesting from our last meeting that a lot of you already at least noticing in which levels of listening that you're operating from. That's the first step, and that's the very key step for moving forward. And also noticing in which levels you're shifting in. I mean, it doesn't always have to be the rising levels, but as I said, the most important thing is you noticing it first. So thank you very much for, oh, there's a lot of shares. But yes, for those of you who hasn't got the experience to share yet, you can share it through the chat in Zoom. So thank you very much, everyone, for your kind reflections. We want to move along through the topic of today of what we're going to learn for today's session is bringing back to. Good. There you go. All right. So moving from that, you're noticing that levels of listening, then you there that's the step of you understanding how the system works. How can you bring yourself to understand your system better, right? So as Shobi mentioned as well in the very start of today's session, where we recap the challenges that we're facing today, the very tip of the iceberg, and realizing underneath the iceberg, there's a lot of factors going in that's building up to what we see on the top. So we use what we call the iceberg model of current reality, is because what is actually above is just a small percent of the reflections of a lot of things that happening underneath. So the things that we see now, the current reality, the visible behaviors, the challenges that we face, is just a mere reflection of the very complex systems and also the layers of systems that are happening underneath what's making those visible behaviors happen. So, what we want to invite you with the iceberg model here is to realize that underneath what we see, there's a more complex systems, complex underlying causes that's making this happen. So, first, underneath what is the visible behaviors that we see is the structures. So the structures are the systemic patterns that makes the things that we see in front of our eyes are happening again and again. The things that we don't want to happen, the things that we don't want to see are happening because the underlying patterns are making us still using the same what is it called, behaviors, the same patterns of doing things that is always enabled by this system that we're living in, such as if, say, you always see your so in Jakarta, what happens a lot is when the flood keeps happening, and so when there's a lot of the rain's happening a lot, so it creates a flood, and because some of the patterns that we see is usually the way we manage our trash in Jakarta isn't the system of us managing the trash in Jakarta isn't sustainable yet. Isn't It doesn't have a very rigid system. That's why it clogs up a lot of the waterways. That creates the flood that keeps happening. So the structures of us not having a great pattern of enabling patterns of us being able to manage our trash better is creating this visible behavior of that keeps happening a lot in Jakarta. So these structures are things that we may see, like the trash patterns that are happening, but also some of them may just be the things that we do that we don't realize as well. So these structures are actually underlined by the thoughts of the people that are part of that system. So we do realize that how we the system that we're living in is the brainchild is the product of the thoughts of the people that lives in that system. So unless we realize how we manage the situation better, how we see the situation better, we just keep doing the same thoughts and the same patterns along and along, and we keep replying the same structures and keep recreating the same visible behaviors that we see today. So we're not doing a lot much of the same. That's why the invitation for you here in this U.Lab journey is to understand your oops, right? To understand your source. The source is the the way, the things of what makes you who you are and what do you want to be tomorrow's, and the source of creativity. So how then we can reframe our paradigms of thought and also understand where is me, where I am coming from, where's the source of how am I wanting to bring myself today, tomorrow, to create a better situation for my system, uh, going through the journey together with us. So the invitation for you to hear is not just to realize the visible behaviors and reacting to these visible behavior as we call the firefighting reaction, and not only to reframe the structures, not sorry, redesign the structures, but we invite you to reframe your paradigms of thought and also understanding the source of where you are all and where we are all coming from to create a better way of us reflecting to our situation better and to create a better and mindful way of us reacting to what is happening outside. So, what we want to do today as well, if you have your pen or paper or your journal books, we want to invite you to reflect through this iceberg model and frame it to your situation that you're facing today. So we want to invite you to understand what are these deeper systemic forces, especially the structures and the paradigms of thought that keep you and the other system stakeholders reenacting the results that ultimately nobody wants. So, in your situation and your challenge and what you see today in front of you, especially the challenges or the intention that you're bringing in into this journey, what are the structures and the paradigms of thought of the people in your system that enables the collective results that nobody wants keeps happening again and again. So maybe as the example, like the flood that's happening in Jakarta, it's probably the system of us not being able to realize that, okay, we don't have a very good trash management system, but waste management system, but there's also other like paradigms of thought that is underlying that system as well. So we want to invite you to reflect on this. You can write it in your journal books and your pen and paper. So this is going to be your reflection for you moving forward with your journey and your intention. Achubi, do you have anything to add? Miss?
Perhaps just to make the direct link that the invitation of ULab and Theory U is trying to recognize and identify these deeper systemic forces that if you change what they are, what you are, would create a different level of reality above the surface. So this journaling question on the right is very, very critical. It's guaranteed it's not going to be correct and does not reflect the actual reality, because whatever our understanding is always going to be an oversimplification of the complex world out there. But at least it gives you a hint of where do you want to intervene. Uh, do we want to keep picking up litter on the beach, which is then you're responding to the outcomes of the situation. Not saying that it's not necessary. Thank you. If people are able to enjoy clean beaches because of what you do, thank you so much. But you will notice too that this keeps happening, right? And eventually you're going to be like, okay, we need to produce less trash. We need to produce less waste, guys. or we need to work better with the waste management facility, or we need to stop consuming. We need to change our relationship with consumption so that we create less waste. So those are the different levels of intervention that you might notice when you see the different layers of what's causing the systemic outcomes. So take a minute or two and look back on the intention or the situation that you are facing, that you brought into U.Lab, and see if you can identify a thing or two, whether it's structural or ways of thinking, paradigms of thoughts that might be holding the system in status quo in the way it is now. And that applies to yourself as well, your own ways of thinking, your own ways of seeing the world.
Great, thank you very much. So yes, we'll have a couple of minutes here. But if you haven't thought about any of this yet, it's also okay. Along the journey, as usual, these materials would be available at the Google Drive. So you can reflect back on this question again after our session, maybe in the next couple of days as well. For you to maybe understand better, okay, I just realized today what are the structures or the thought patterns that are underlying the visible behaviors that I see in my system today that I want to intervene in. So yes, we still invite you to go to reflect back on this question for the next coming days as well. So maybe I can move along. Think if that's okay. Okay. So yes, you can go back to this question again, but now that we're inviting you to go through this learning journey, what are the ways then for us to understand what is underneath the visible behaviors better? Just doing what I usually do, doing the same pattern, downloading the same pattern, the business as usual pattern may not be the ways to start it, because as Shobi mentioned in our recap, what we invite you to now is go dive deeper and see the system as it is, as it is itself. So in this week's session, what we want to invite you is to sense your system better with the people that you're working in. So co-sensing part is where we invite you to step out of your bubble and going through the system, the edges of the system, the places that you've never been before, and it's very critical to your understanding of how the systems work. There, we invite you to connect with those stakeholders and also empathize with them and understand situations without judgment, without your point of view, but merely understanding the situation as it is with their point of view. So this is the theme for this week, co-sensing. And later on through the journey, Shobi will also explain a lot about how can you understand the situation in those places of, later on Otto will also share, in the places where you can learn the most and also understand what are the social connection of the people there in the systems there, where you can understand how they're operating from and how you can understand and empathize to them better. So without further ado, I want to invite Otto. So we have a video from Otto Sharmer, who is the founder of the theory process. Otto will explain from the video. Otto will explain about the principles of co-sensing, the things that we need to take mindful of through this journey forward. So as an America team, if the videos, I'll stop share here. So if
Last
the
week's
video
video,
is ready,
I gave you an introduction into the U process, which is a process that individuals and groups can use in order to sense and actualize their highest future possibility. And during the empathy walk and during the coaching circle, you already practiced the most important skill that makes something like the U process work, and that is deep listening. Shifting the inner place from where our listening and from where our attention originates. This week, we'll start a journey down the left-hand side of the U. This is kind of the first of three main stages of the U process, and we call this stage co-sensing. And what we mean with co-sensing is really this, that we move beyond downloading the patterns of the past in order to connect with reality deeper and better, both with the current reality that we currently face, but also the emerging reality that is wanting to happen around us and within us. Most leadership failures that I have seen happened because leaders were unable to connect to the changing reality around them. Here's a real-world example. During the early 1980s, the US auto company executives started to make trips to Japan to find out what it was that made the Japanese competitor outperforming their US counterparts. Coming back from one of these trips, one of these executives talked to my colleague here at MIT, Peter Senge. And Peter remembers this story that he asked them, so what was the trip like? And the Detroit executive responded to him, well, he didn't really get that much out of it. So he asked him, why was that? Well, they didn't show us the real plant. And Peter asked, why would you say that? And then the executive responded, I have seen plenty of assembly facilities in my life. And what they showed to us wasn't a real plant. There was no inventory, there was no dirt. It didn't, it was a stage tour that they created for us. They didn't show us the real facilities. If you step back and look at that story from today, you see how this executive and his team was exposed in the early 1980s to a major shift, a major revolution in manufacturing technology from conventional to lean production. And yet, although they saw with their own eyes, their minds were unable to process this information because their minds, the way they processed the information was bounded, limited by their experience of the past, what a real manufacturing plant looks like, and so on and so forth. So in spite of being exposed to that revolution that was going on around them, their minds were unable to really open up and to process this new information. And that's exactly what we try to practice in the space of co-sensing. That number one, we put ourselves into the places of most potential, into places where we are exposed to and connected with something new. But then number two, we also practice this interior condition to open our mind, to suspend our old habits of judgment, our old habits of perception, our old habits of thought, in order to really connect with and tune into what it is that's changing around us, and that's also beginning to change within us. And that's the essence of co-sensing that we try to practice this week.
Thank you very much, Otto. So hopefully that gives you quite an understanding of what it means to go sense and see the system as it is. So for the law, I want to invite Shobi. So Shobi, do you have anything to reflect? What are the things that we need to understand while we co-sense? What are the things that we need to be mindful of? So Shobi, I don't think we have your screen, but we don't have your
Yes.
camera. All right, there you go.
So thank you, Mita, and for sharing Otto's introduction to the co-sensing principle. I would just like to reiterate two things, right? So in order for us to really engage with reality, not from a place of downloading, not from a place of just repeating old patterns, the invitation is to do this co-sensing principle where one, you go to places of most potential, places that if you go and visit, will expose you to something that is completely different, something that could change the way you think and see the world, right? At the same time, uh, you are invited to also practice your deep listening, your openness of the mind and of the heart, because as the story goes in Otto's little video, um, no amount of sensing journey can help if you refuse to open up to these new experiences, as was the case with the factory leaderships being exposed to something new, a different ways of being, and they're like, that's totally fake. That is no way how a factory could run, right? And how many times in the world, in our lives, that we were actually face to face was something that could completely transform the way we do things. And yet we fail to recognize it because we closed up, right? And that's why the deep listening capacity of understanding from a deeper level what is emerging is a core practice and a core leadership capacity for those of us wanting to see change in the larger system. So, the other the next thing that we want to introduce you to is this notion of social field, right? Um, we know we're very familiar with, I think, the structures that are visible around us, whether that's our institutions and the way they're governed, whether that's our rules and regulations, whether that's the physical environment that we build that then influence the way people behave. Um, and I think we are well trained in manipulating or maneuvering these things, right? We have schools of engineering, we have schools of public speaking, we have schools of public policy, decision making, and so on and so forth. These are educations in how to engineer the visible parts of our society, right? But I think a lot of us have what Theory U is noticing, that a lot of us have a blind spot towards what is called the social field. The social field is kind of the what's beneath the iceberg of the system that is visible. And if we were to give it a definition, it's actually the structure of relationships that give rise to collective behavior. What does that mean? Um, I'm sure you've been in this situation, right? You put in new structures, but people still behave the same. And that's because nothing changes about the way people relate with each other. Nothing changes about the way people relate with the system itself. And so paying attention to social field means paying attention to the quality of relationship that then give rise to the way the system behaves. And so, what do you pay attention to? How do you find the social field? Is actually not that difficult, but you just have to know what to look for. And for sure, you cannot only pay attention with your mind, but you also have to bring your heart into it. Okay, so one of the easiest way of understanding how the social field of any given system is by paying attention to the levels of conversation that people are having, because conversations are living embodiment of social fields. Okay, I repeat, conversations are living embodiment of social fields. I think some of you already hinted from your check-ins earlier that sometimes who you converse with determines your level of listening, correct? And so you might notice this too in your everyday situation and circumstances, that you know that when a team is a solid, they're very smoothly operating, they're very close with one another, it is reflected in the way they converse with one another. Likewise, in a system that is highly functional and a system that runs smoothly, usually the interconnections of the different parts of the system is happening very, very smoothly. There's good, close relationships between the parts. And then that allows the system itself to behave much better. Okay, so when you go into any system, any situation, whether that's your team, whether that's your family, whether you're dealing with inter institution relationships, you will usually notice also levels of conversations, levels or fields of how they're bringing themselves into the situation. Okay. The first is the same, downloading. I think very many of our ways of connecting with each other happens at this level. We are only saying things that other people want to hear. I think we humans are social animals. We're very attuned to what is expected of us socially. And in order for us to get along, in order for us to fit in order for us to belong, we just say what's, the polite things. We all say just the right things. Um, and I think I'm not saying this is bad again, right? This is not about that four is better than one, but this is about noticing the different levels that you can be operating from. And I think a lot of us wouldn't be very successful in dealing or functioning in society if we do not, at some level, able to carry on this, small talk function of everyday life. Um, and then there's the second level where we notice the differences. Remember, this correlates directly with the levels of listening, right? Where you bring your difference to the table and say, "No, that's not how I see it." And then what happens is that you're speaking from what you think. You diverge, and then and this is what I notice happens a lot when people engage into debate. Why do people get upset? Because they can't separate that they are different from their point of view, right? So instead of examining the points of views as something that is flexible and bound, subject to change, you wear it like a very tight jacket. You see it as part of yourself, and any attack against your point of view becomes an attack against your person, which is absolutely not the case, right? An opinion is something that you can take off, something you can place on the table and examine from different perspectives. And that requires the open mind. Remember last week, level two listening, level two conversation is about employing your open mindedness and realizing that we are not our point of view. Um, so again, I think these two we already know fairly well how to do. It's the basis of many of the policy making decision. You're always debating the different points of views. There are debate clubs in high school and universities. We are very well trained to be different, to state our differences in public. Um, and again, it's not wrong, but it doesn't get us into a different future. It is not transformative. In order to see transformation, you need deeper level of fields of conversation, which is reflective inquiry. And this is shifting from coming at something with what you see, coming at something with what you know is right, to dropping that aside and starting a process of inquiry and reflecting, um, reflective inquiry. So, first you ask, why is that? How is this different? Why am I different? Maybe there are certain things behind this point of view that informs their decision. I always tell people, people's opinions always make sense to them. People's choices always make sense to them. So if you want to understand why people do certain things, you can't just come at them with your own stories. You have to put your stories aside and ask them, how does that make sense to you? How might I understand your opinion? How might I understand your perspectives? And that starts the second part of reflecting. Remember, turning the beam of observation back to ourselves, right? Um, what is it about the situation that is inviting me to change? And that in turn bring or allows the space for collective creativity. When people um, allows this conversation to be a vessel, to be an avenue for creating something new that wants to be born. And when you take all these four levels and you map it onto a system, you can see a system that is filled with people that are only saying or listening to things that are nice to hear. You get a bubble, right? People who are living in their own sphere, very disconnected from what's going on in the world. A system that is very good at debating creates a system that is very reactive. There's always confrontation, there's always tension, there's that sense of me versus you. If you, as a leader, have that capacity after noticing, but then shifting the level of conversation to the deeper level, then you have a system that is reflective, and reflection is the first key towards transformation. I think we've said this in a number of ways throughout the last 3 weeks, right? The first thing is noticing and then shifting. So once you start reflecting and you notice differences or you notice your own patterns, you can start making the decision to shift. And that allows for a system that constantly generates itself, a system that is always updating its own awareness. Okay. So that is perhaps the second core practice that we want to introduce to all of you going through the U.Lab journey. If last week we invite you to take a look at your source of listening, now let's pay attention to your level of engaging with those around you. What level are you in? Any system that you bring yourself in, whether it's your team at work, whether it's you and your parents, or you and your loved one, or you and your child, usually it's these levels are always the same between you and others, right? It's very rarely you see where in a conversation one person is being all deep and emotional and open, and then the other one is like, I'm just still talking nice. The ability to kind of drop that level of conversation in a system that you're attending to is critical in allowing the system to see itself. So A is again bringing the attention towards your own journey of U.Lab. Let's take a moment to bring up your pen and paper, and then also turning the beam of observation back on your situation and your own intention that you bring to U.Lab. And I will stop my sharing so that Mita can take over. The first question is for yourself. Just write down in your journal, what were the moments in your life and your work where you actually experienced these deeper levels of conversation? What does it feel like? It feels like you're being very authentic, you're being very naked, you're being very vulnerable. People were speaking truthfully, people were speaking without being hindered by prestige or sense of gengsi, if Indonesians call it, right? Uh, you're too proud to say the truth, right? So what were those moments when you felt that? Okay, and in about a minute or so, we'll advance to the next question. Try to wrap up your own journaling for the first question. You can always go back to it. As Mita said, this material will be available to you later, so you can always go back to it and expand on your own reflections. All right, can we advance to the next question? Thank you. Okay, so the second question is inviting you to think about, I think Otto mentioned in his video, places of most potential. I think we're all used to experiencing the world from where we are, right? Everything seems familiar where we are. We know how things work from where we stand. But there's always other parts to the system that can show you a lot more. So, going back and revisiting the intention or the challenge or situation that you're bringing into your ULAB journey, what are some places of most potential that you, if you put yourself in that situation, could show you a different way of looking at the system, a different experience of showing how the system works? Where are those places? So go ahead and think and just write them down in your journal. All right. So let's take a moment to bring in your voice from these journaling questions. Again, this is primarily for you, but your sharing helps others learn. So, whatever you want to bring in on social media or Mentimeter about these two questions, please share them with us and we'll bring them to the larger learning space. I hand it over to Mita.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Shopi. A power wish to you. One, two, three. Whoosh. So probably just want to highlight a couple of your reflections. I think we have some on Mentimeter. And also for those of you in Zoom, if you want to share with us, you can flag us in the chat or you can raise your hand so we can help to unmute you. So while we wait, oh, we already have a contender here. So yes, we have, oh, wait, where you go? You have raised your hand. Oh, there you go. Okay, we have Tin from Vietnam. I'll unmute.
Yes. Okay. I want to share one of my thoughts of a place that I have seen the potential and I can view it from another angles different from my own. You can, as you can see that someone has said that you would have to. Why do you want? Why do you have to view things from different angles? Because if you view something from another point of view, even in our homes, perhaps you have not noticed everything yet. For example, when you know that I usually live under the attic, which makes my point of view related to my house pretty general. When you see, as you can see, when we one day I go on the roof, on the top of my house, and I see the whole city. I see the whole part of my house, including my gardens, from another point of view. Should I understand? Should I view? Should I sense the beauty of my beloved compound? So seeing things just like Sana said, from a higher point of view, we can view it very different from the way we view it in a lower part. So I believe that. So where how do I apply that in my life? When I view something, I always think of the road of a higher position person. People, a person in a higher position. So when I see things from the one who knows everything and who got everything, yes, everything seems crystal enough for me to handle. So that's the way I can see it.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Tian.
much. That's a very power whoosh again. One, two, three, whoosh. Thank you so much for trying to step out and trying to understand um, other points of views very different from yours. And I think one thing to also understand that is every point of view is also very interesting to look at. I think in the sensing later on, I'll also invite you to go through another tool that is called the sensing journey, where we would like to invite you to see situations from point of views that are very different from yours, as the Presencing Institute always calls it, the edges of the system, the places of where you can learn more, a lot of the point of views or the extreme point of views of the say the minorities or the people whose voices are rarely also brought up in the system. So that's one thing to look forward to. If Ngava here already nominates shared, if and anyone doesn't want to share, then the co-facilitators would nominate people like it's Hunger Games. Very, oh no, but then we already have another contender here. So we have, I think, Andrew from the Philippines. Okay, Andrew, if you mind to turn on your camera so we can see you.
Oh yeah, yeah, but I'll turn it on in a while.
All
Um,
right.
but I'll but what I want to share is that so we're talking about uh places where we can uh in a sense share other thoughts or places of most potential where we can co-sense others, right? So I believe at most of the time we live in such a bubble, for example, in school or in work. I think spaces like community services or social group services would also allow us to get perspectives from others because there's a wide range of people who are in different ages or races or whatever, different status in lives. And then you go to also communities, maybe different from where you are. So I think going beyond your personal bubble or where you usually are at your home, at your school, or at your work, it allows you to co-sense others, right? It allows you to feel others. It allows you to empathize others. And I think that gives you a wide range of platform for at least generating perspectives beyond what you have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. That's very, very true. Going beyond your own bubble and experiencing different walks of life, especially people with very different backgrounds, and the deep listening to their stories, I think will tell you a lot about how the world functions differently from the story that you yourself are experiencing through on your own life's journey. Right? Thank you, Power Whoosh. One, two,
One,
three,
two,
whoosh.
three, whoosh. I think due to time constraints, we can we have one sharing from the social media channels, Maral or Ngaba?
Yes, we have several here from social media. Ngabo, do you like to start? And then I'll follow second.
Yeah, there is one on Facebook that says, I can find a deeper level of conversations through being advised to participate in volunteers activities. So this is the same similar, quite similar with Andrew has expressed. And that is what made me want to get better understanding of myself and my friends. Joining ULab is part of that. and to learn about listening and speaking to different um, wow, the box, different cultures. Sorry, the box can only fit so many characters.
That's
Uh,
true.
we have several. Also, can I? I would like to add. Here's one from Martin. And he said, "When I was surrounded by people who I love and those value my presence." And the other one, this one is pretty interesting. This is from Nofa, and she said, "I've experienced a deeper level of conversation when I have to explain my dreams to my parents." So that's actually quite interesting. That means like she has a very good relationship. But I think it's that, right? Being valued, the same point as Martin, being valued and surrounded by the people that we love.
Oh, thank you very much. Power wish to you guys. One, two, three. Whoosh.
And I think just to comment on that, it's very true. And in fact, if you go, hopefully you will all sign up for the longer ULab, the global ULab. And there's a part in one of the videos there that says a person sharing a quote from a person says, "In order to listen more deeply to someone, I first have to create a space for them in my heart." So I think love, this is why we call it compassionate listening, right? Or empathic listening, is bringing love into everything that you do. Just, I think, immediately pulls you to a different dimension, pulls you to a different fields of engaging, a different field of relationship. I think oftentimes we forget that the people that we deal with are people. They're just a cog in the machine. Can you please do this for me? Can you please do that for this other institution? But which is very dehumanizing, right? So bringing our full self and our hearts in everything that we do can make for a very humanizing experience where you acknowledge the whole person with your own whole being as well. And love is such, I think, a very all-encompassing source to allow us to do that. And yes, absolutely. If you have a good relationship with your parents, you've probably felt that, right? Where you're being validated, your dreams, your values, your presence are validated through your parents. So, yes, thank you for bringing that perspective.
So yes, keep your reflections coming. I think um, I just want to highlight this one from the Mentimeter. If I may. So I think where is it? Oh, there you go. So yes, what in Mentimeter, one of the highlights. Wow, some of the people who share this one a very good one is we have somebody who's considering a career change and moving to a foreign place despite this pandemic condition, and these are the moments that they're having that deeper levels conversation, especially within themselves. And so hopefully this can be the right place and change that is needed. So we're praying all the best for everyone, especially for those of you who are joining in. Hopefully, this journey can find and better give you better clarity of how you can move on in your journey better in life, and having a more mindful reflection of how can we map forward how we reflect and respond to the situations that are around us. So thank you very much, everyone who has put in their voices in. I'm sorry, due to I know that a lot of you wants to share your reflections as well, but it's okay, keep them coming, and because we are rounding them up, and hopefully we can respond to some of those questions as well if they're not answered here during the sessions yet. So moving along, I think to round up what we've learned today on co-sensing and what are the points that we need to highlight. Shubi, do you want to guide us through what are the things that we need to take home if we want to do the co-sensing practice in our systems? You're still muted. Let
I
me.
am still
Okay.
muted. So let me share my screen. Okay, so co-sensing principles. Uh, there we go. The invitation, of course, as before, you won't learn how to co-sense by sitting in front of your computer with us in the 2 hours, right? This is just to introduce to you the tools. But for you to be adept at it, you have to actually take the tool and use it outside in your own challenges, in your own situation. So when you do find a place of most potential, a place that you in your heart you know, if I go there, if I connect with that part of reality, it has a potential to change the way I see the world. When you do go, keep these things in mind. Okay. Number one is core questions. Uh, let's just say that the quality of your co-sensing process is a function of the quality of the questions that you are asking yourself. If you're asking questions above only at the very superficial symptom level, you're not going to get very far deeper into the system and understanding how it works. So make sure that you're asking the most fundamental questions. And these are usually around values and principles, around hopes and fears, around things that need to be changed. It involves a lot of courage to be asking bold questions that maybe nobody wants to hear, let alone answer. Right. But if you put these questions on the table, what are great questions, for example? Think about revolutionary moments in history, right? Every time there's a revolution, is because somebody dared to ask the question, can the world be different, right? Um, in the independence of nations, somebody somewhere in the history of that nation or country thinks, what if we become independent? Can we do it? So the quality of your core questions will determine the quality of your inquiry and investigation. So ask deep questions. Okay. Um, the second one is again the sensing journey. Uh, go. It's not the same as benchmarking. It's not just. I think in Indonesia we know what's called the kunjungan kerja. You know, where you just go sightsee to another place. It's not that. It's actually a way for you to experience the system. Oftentimes, it's the edges, the people who are most marginalized, that'll give you a completely different perspective into how the system have failed them, into the failings of the system that gives you a window into how we can do better collectively. So sensing journey is about that. It's about um, bringing yourself to organizations, people, and communities that matter the most to the situation that you are facing. And this is a high leverage, and you can go shadow them, spend a day in their shoes, or you can do. We'll introduce the tool to you in a little bit here, a stakeholder interview, because probably right now it's very difficult for us to move around and visit one another due to the pandemic. But that doesn't stop us from being able to connect, right? Your people are always only one phone call away with an open heart to get them to open up to you with their experiences. The next one is suspending your voice of judgment. Recalling again that example of the factory leadership that Otto was mentioning in his video, where this was the U.S. Automotive industry leaders visiting what was then a new revolutionizing ways of automotive production, which is the lean, where there's not much inventory and you only put together what you need on the floor. And so the shop floor looks very clean. And they go there and they're like, this is fake, right? So suspending your voice of judgment is key in order for you to really understand what future is making itself visible to you. That highest future potential at any given point is always around us. It's up to us whether or not we can see it, depending on our quality of being able to suspend our voice of judgment and the quality of our listening, right? So again, connecting with your mind and your heart wide open, and the willingness to let go of your own narrative, to take off that jacket of your opinion and fully listen and try to understand where other people are coming from. And I think lastly is the process, equally important, is the collective sensing or collective sense making process. if you do this with a core team, if you do this with a friend or a family member or somebody else who are important to you in this journey, take a time afterwards to really sit down and process together. What does it mean? Where's our current level of attention? And how is that keeping us from transforming? How is that keeping us reenacting the same patterns? And then where do we need to shift our attention to deeper levels of the system structure or to our ways of thinking or to our ways of relating to one another that can then transform and shift the system? So that discipline of giving the space of reflection after the sensing journey is critical in shifting your understanding. So don't just go home and then put your books and stuff away or your journal book and then move on to something else. No, reflection and reflective spaces are very very important in transformation journey. So which is why for the next week, we want to invite you to, as usual, practice some of these principles in a couple of different tools, which Mita will introduce.
All right. So Shobi already mentioned some of the tools that we're going to invite you to go through. And the first one is the stakeholder interview process. So basically, just in a bigger point of view, we want to invite you to is to find out who are the people that are important to your journey, who are the people, especially in the context that you're bringing into this U.Lab learning journey here, and you set up a couple of questions that you want to ask to this person, and then you just have that conversation with them. It's that simple. But the invitation here is not just to ask them with questions that you already know, but to bring also your presence here in this conversation to reflect how your role can support this person. So, so just like the ones that I mentioned here, what do they want from me, and what do they need me for? So in Otto's video later on in the guidelines as well, you can find some of the example questions you can ask to these people, and also there's a video that's available and some of the reflections of people who have gone through the stakeholders interview process when they bring out themselves in a different way in this situation. They could understand better and reflect on how their role can support this person and find new ways of understanding the situation better, because you're coming to this an interview process without judgment, without any expectations of how the answer is going to be. That way you can really listen to this person better and understand situations from their point of view. So that's the first one. And be mindful, because we're still in the pandemic. You can do this using an online platform, either Zoom or any kind of video call. But if the situation is already safe for you, you can find a more intimate place for you to be connected to one another. But yes, be mindful of the health situation wherever you're at. We want you to learn, but also we want you to be safe and healthy as well. So that's the first invitation that we want to invite you in. The next one is the sensing journey itself. So this is actually a tool where you go to places of most potential. So places where you can. So there are two things that Otto mentioned that can be a place of most potential, which is the places that you might never go there before, but these places are the places that you know can that is very relevant to what are you doing and very relevant to the challenge or intention that you bring into this journey. So initially what you do is come there and just basically be there, just like a fly in the wall, as they say. Just observe and understand what are the things that are happening there as it is, without bringing any expectations or perceived judgments, like the one that Otto shared with the automotive visit. They already bring that set of judgments and expectations to that journey. That's why the sensing journey process wasn't doesn't give very good reflective moments. So hopefully you can do this. Also, the guides are available in our main Google Drive. the bit.ly/U.LabX 2021-online. So a lot of our materials are going to be there. There are videos, there are guidelines to go through the sensing journey. But since this tool needs you to go someplace else, please be mindful of the health situation where you're at. The other way that you can do this as well, if you can also be a fly in the wall, maybe to some situations, say an online meeting of an organization or a community that you want to learn more, the place of most potential, that you can join into. So just observe the meeting as it is without them giving you a red carpet extra treatment of you being in that situation. So that way you can learn more things and also bringing yourself in a very different point of view, a different position with your new understanding and being able to be mindful of the conversation, the social fields that are happening into that place. So one more practice that we want to remind you again along the week and also for you to be able to insert this discipline in your everyday practice is the mindfulness practice itself. So being able to establish this mindfulness discipline enables you to be more aware of yourself, being able to be aware of the levels of your listening, being able to be aware of the conversation that are happening around you. So as we always emphasize, the mindfulness practice doesn't work if you just do it one time. It's like an exercise in a gym. You don't go to a gym just one time and then you just become buff. You need to have the discipline and along the way that discipline, that awareness of being able to understand situations as it is and being able to understand, being more clear to what is happening in your head, also will be established along the way if you have this mindfulness practice. So as Shobi said, start wherever you're at. If you missed one or two practice each day, it's okay. You can start again later on and just start from the very small ones, just a couple of minutes in your daily lives. That's also fine. So we'll later on we'll have a couple of links or maybe guidance for you to exercise your mindfulness practice in the main Google Drive link that we'll share. So I think that's over the invitation to practice that we want to invite you to go through the next couple of weeks. And if you don't do it in the next week, that's fine. All the materials will still be available in the Google Drive. You can do it along the way in your journey. Before we open up a question and answer session, well, I think because of the time constraints, we can only pull out a few of them. Shobi, do you want anything to add?
Just a three piece practice, practice, practice.
There you go. It's okay. I think even the people who are most established, the people you know, they're always practicing to be better, to make their awareness more robust. So that's fine. Start wherever you're at. And now we would open up a question and answer session. I think because the very limited time constraints, we can only pull up a few. So Maral or Ngaba or anyone in the Zoom, if you have any questions, you can share in the chat or raise hand and then we will help you unmute. But before, do we have any questions from the social media? Oh, let's just stop sharing here. There you go.
Not yet. We don't have questions yet from social media. But do you mind actually maybe elaborating, even for me, like who's been quite familiar with this uh, with the new theory? Kasha, we keep on mentioning about practice, 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 right? But how do you define that? Does it mean like us being sensitive all the time, or does it have to be specific where we really spend time going doing a clinic session or something like that? Maybe you can share that. Well, I'm still waiting for the questions from the social media.
Well, um, for the listening, thank you, Maral, for teasing that out. I would say, I think for the listening observation practice, that's definitely an ongoing throughout the day, any type of situation. When you can think of or remind yourself of what level you're listening, do it, right? So that's something that you can do throughout the day. The mindfulness, I think the moment of stillness. I think the doctor's prescription is to do it every day, perhaps at least once in the morning or before you go to sleep at night. But there are also, I think some people have called it like micro mindfulness sessions, where if you feel like suddenly you're feeling stressed out or you're in the middle of a tense situation, just bringing your attention back to the breath and letting go of the fear and the worries and just like take a breath. There are even breathing exercises that you can look up to help yourself calm down and be more centered in the moment. You can do that throughout the day as well. Um, the stakeholders interview, the case clinic, do it, try it at least once, right? Try it at least once and see if it makes a difference. See what you learn from it. And then if you do get something out of it, hey, maybe try the second person. Maybe try listening from another person in your system. Something along that line. Mit, anything to add? Or maybe you yourself as well, Maral, or our co-facilitator, since you've been through this as well, right? You're a practitioner as well.
I can add a bit if we have time.
Sure, sure. Do sharing of us.
Yeah, this happened to me years ago when I was a college student. So I was in this reset team, and then we were in the like homemade tofu factories. Try to um, find the problem. What do you call it? The problem statement of what we can help and come up with a prototype. And of course, a 20-something years old college student would think that this factory produce a lot of waste and that means they want to manage their waste better. And we found out that it's not even in their concern because their concern is making money. So I think that it's very important of this tool to know that you are operating with uh, what they are interested in and not yours as 20 something years old you. So thank you very much for sharing that everybody and share the tools that everybody can use. Um, yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ngaba,
very
for
much.
sharing a very practical application. We have a question from within the Zoom. We have a raised hand from
Yep.
Maya.
Hi, this is Mia from Burma, and
Can you turn on your camera, please, so we can see
If
oh,
it's
okay, sure.
possible.
if it's
Yeah,
possible?
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, okay. Hi, this is Mia from Burma, and I feel so grateful to be able to join the third session on Zoom. Actually, I have a question. So, for Shobi, is that possible to, is that possible to link four levels of listening and fields of conversation? Suppose I'm on the level three of listening, and is that necessarily do I necessarily need to be like on the level three of the fields of conversation? So um, yeah.
Yes, good question. I think they're linked, but they're not necessarily automatic cause and effect, right? So just because you are
Yeah.
listening from level three doesn't mean the other people in the room are operating or conversing at level three. But what you can do is this is why I love questions, right? Because questions are a way to center our collective attention. So, what I find can be very powerful is when you're listening from level three, you might be asking questions that others are not seeing or thinking because they're still stuck at level one or level two, right? They're still stuck in the patterns of downloading or debating, arguing the facts and whatnot. But you might be answering deeper questions like, what really matters right now? No, what is this? What are we working for towards? Like who are the most important people that we're not serving, or things like that can help you shift the fields of conversation lower. hopefully. And of course, I think this is. I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet from the floor. But in our past programs, people are always saying, "I'm already listening," and the person I'm listening to, they're still like all about me, me, me. They're still like stuck in level 2. They still want to debate. Well, so what do I do? Keep doing it anyway, right? So it's I've noticed, and this has been said as well by other practitioners of this process. Deep listening is like it's like a welding flame. You know, when you're welding something, you don't just light it up
Mhm.
for a little bit and then see the metal melt, right? You have to
Yeah.
constantly, persistently apply that level of listening and attending to the situation, and eventually, people will kind of ease into it. So what it means is that sometimes it takes one or two or three tries. If you're working with, this is I hear this a lot from people working with different institutions. For example, if you're used to working with them on a very confrontational basis, of course, the first time you go over there, they're gonna be like, "What do you want? I'm very suspicious of you," right? But the more, if you do it consistently and you do it from a place of honest, a good intention, and you just keep coming back and say, "Look, I'm here to help. I'm here to help. Tell me what you want. I'm all ears. I'm listening. I'm not going to judge. I'm here to help." Eventually, they're like, "Okay, this person is serious. This person is sincere, and I can work with them." So it does take a while. It does take consistency. It does take persistence, and some you might even feel at times like, "Why am I doing this to myself? Because it's so hard." And I feel like when I do this, I'm denying myself um, for the sake of giving other people space. So, and this is where the mindfulness practice comes in, because that's where I personally, that's where I discharge all my pains, my worry, time to recenter, remind myself why this is important. That becomes kind of my way of recentering and recharging, so that I can go back into the world and offer that space of love and emotional connections that otherwise would probably be difficult if I were operating from scarcity. So I hope that makes sense. Thank you. That's a great question.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining.
Our wish to you. 1, 2, 3. Whoosh.
Wish.
Oh, I think the other thing that I wanted to say is that the goal of this U process changing system is not about trying to change other people. It's very, very difficult to change other people, right? But you start with
Yeah.
yourself and you do it consistently and persistently. And then somewhere along the way, the universe conspires, things start shifting, and then it becomes easier and things start happening.
Thank
That's
you.
true. I think echoing what the quote that Otto always mentioned is that the quality of the intervention depends on the quality of the intention of the intervener itself. So hopefully, going along to your journey, we wish you all the best as well, everyone here and also everyone joining in. I think it's because we have very limited time here. Just what we need to wrap it up in a sec. But just to remind you again, to close up this session today, for everyone joining, even the one who are on Zoom today, and also the ones that are joining through any kind of streaming platforms, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. Um, if you have we want to hear from you. And if you want to have a certificate until the end of the journey, please check in with us to this link. It's bit.ly/ulab dash week 3. So we'll share the link as well. But please jot this up. This link is very important. If you check in with us 4 out of the 6 session, you will have a e-certificate. Woohoo! So not only that you can learn more, but you can also have a certificate. And also all of the course materials, the PowerPoints, the videos, the auto videos, and also the guidelines to journey that we're inviting you in are available at the Google Drive here. It's bit.ly/U.LabX 2021-online. So later on, also I'll put up some notice and also guidelines on some tips maybe and links to share on how you can do your mindfulness practice and also how you can join and voice out and joining the global U.Lab course. They're starting in September. So we do really encourage you to later on in September, I think in 23rd September, we'll share the link and also the info in the Google Drive link. In 23rd September, you can join the global the global U.Lab course with MIT and Olu Sharma himself, and be connected with the more global community where you can have case clinics and conversation like this, but with people all around the world who are joining through the Theory U process online in the EDX course with MIT. So that would be something to look up to. And also, we want to hear your reflections. Please shout out to us through the social medias. We want to hear your reflections. And if you go through any of the tools, please do share with us. It's going to be a very fun and interesting reflections for us to learn with each other's from. So with that, we want to thank you for your participation in our third session of U.LabX. It's always fun and it's always very enlightening to be connected with people with positive energies, learning more about themselves, and not only learning more about the system, but also learning more about themselves. So to round up, Chobi, do you want anything to add before we move it on to the America team?
Just a reminder to please try any of the tools in your own context, because I guarantee that's what's going to take your leadership to the next level. It's not just your time here, but also what you do outside. So keep it up. Thank you so much for being your full presence. We really enjoy here or through live streaming, hearing your voice and your insights. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Whoosh to everyone joining in everywhere you're at. 1, 2, 3. Whoosh. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll pass it on to the At America team. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for attendance. See you next week, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Ibu Shobi, and also Mbak Mita, and also the rest of our facilitators today. We hope to see you again next week. Now, the rest of you, please don't go anywhere, because I have the name of the winner for our social media quiz today. Earlier in this event, I asked you guys, who is the originator of Theory U? And the correct answer is D, Odo Sherman. And our lucky winner for today is Tinmay from Zoom. Congratulations! Now, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this event, Ad America is having a very special activity and we're giving out an iPad Pro. And how do you participate? You can participate by posting a picture of your own design for a mask to your social media. Use the hashtag #MaskToUnmask on the caption, and don't forget to tag our social media account at ATAmerica. For further information, you can visit atam.tv/masktounmask. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Easy, you can go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, click create an event, and collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletters for weekly event updates sent straight to your inbox. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at ATAmerica for event updates, fun content, and so much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Alright everybody, I think that wraps up this episode. It has been really fun, but unfortunately we have to say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy weekend!
Happy weekend. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Get vaccinated.
Thank you.